MarTechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of MarTechTalk. I'm your host Luke and we'll be joined shortly by our wonderful panelists for this week. But before I introduce them, I'll draw your attention to the chat icon to the side, as this lets you ask questions, make comments and generally get involved. So please do. This week, the topic of discussion is Beyond Badge Scans, measuring conversions from your B2B events. So we're going to start off by talking about creating a pre-event strategy to secure customer meetings. Then we're going to move on to talk about aligning sales and marketing to business goals and measuring event ROI. And finally, we'll discuss mapping out a program that allows customers to engage with your brand. But first, let's welcome our panelists for this week. When I say your name, could you please turn on your camera and mic? First, we have, in no particular order, Sausan, Head of Global Demand Generation at Heimdall Security. Hi, Sausan.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. And next we have Aaron, VP of Strategic Accounts at Now. Hi, Aaron.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks.
Good to be here today. Yep, thanks for having us.
And Beth, Head of Events at Meeting Nerd. Hi, Beth.
Good morning from California.
Thanks for joining us. Is it early there for you?
It's 7:02 a.m.
Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, let's jump straight into the news item for this week then to get us started. We've got a story here from Forbes titled "What B2C Companies Can Learn from B2B Events in a Post-Pandemic World." This largely talks about the power of digital events and this idea of a balanced approach between that and physical events. So what are your takes and experiences in this area? Sausan, can I come to you first to get us started, please?
Of course, I think actually for someone who works in marketing, this was a really interesting time moving from what was in-person events to try and shift things virtual. And there were definitely many advantages in terms of being able to see engagement, see how long people are there for, see what content they're downloading. And I think it allowed the industry to get a bit more creative. But I think what it really highlighted for our industry and we're in cybersecurity is that the face-to-face interaction is just it's super valuable and it can't be replicated. And I think whilst we are able to reach more people virtually on different time zones, actually it really highlighted how important it is to have those face-to-face connections and have people in person. Sometimes when you are speaking for a computer, it's hard to know how engaged people are and whether they're attentive. And I think, yeah, it really highlighted the power of being in person.
Lovely, thanks. Yeah, and I'll say to anyone, because we're digital at the moment, anyone who's there, if you want to use the chat icon, get involved. Aaron, can I pass to you next on this one, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that Sausan said is right on. It's, during virtual, as much as we wanted engagement to be there, it just wasn't. That we could have a larger reach with content across the audience and bring a lot more volume of people together to see that content, but the engagement just wasn't there. And so the value of face-to-face engagement to have the right conversations with the right people, I've seen the value of that go up since COVID has kind of gone away and we can have kind of both live and virtual environments. So we can still reach people with content, but we have to make sure that we have the live environments to engage and help convert business.
Yeah, they needed both. Thank you. And Beth, can I pass to you for your take on this, please?
Yeah, I'll just echo those comments that there's been an incredible energy at in-person experiences in the last year. Our first in-person was in September 2021, and it was maybe a little early, but the energy and the engagement was like something we'd never seen. I think it's really important to balance those new expectations that we have, our customers have for an online option for B2C or B2B events. It's less expensive for them. It's less time away. But I also have been trying to encourage our clients to think about their hybrid experience as the in-person, there's nothing that's going to be like it. Like we want to incentivize people to come. They're only going to get some pieces from there, but then meeting the need or the expectation for something online by live streaming a keynote or a couple of sessions, maybe doing some like on the ground social media campaigns so that people can feel like they're there, but also not giving that away for free. Thinking about making all of those options something you still have to register for.
Yeah, nice. I like how there's so many positives and negatives on both sides, but everyone's coming back to the physical, straight back to it. But
it used to be in our business where we could sell web conferencing integrations with our platform on a regular basis. Now I can't seem to sell one for the life of me, because companies want people to not have an option to go virtual if there's an option to come live. They want to make sure they're going to come live, and only if they can't come live, there's an option to join virtual, because they need the power of that live engagement.
It's that backup. Yeah. So that brings us on to our first point, actually, talking about creating a pre-event strategy to secure customer meetings. And I'm interested to hear how that works now with this new, because I think it did open up the digital space a little bit, but how's that working now for your experiences? Sorsen, can I come back around to you, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually just looping that background, I think one of the positives of having the virtual events is that they're recorded. So if someone missed it then and there, you've always got that as a resource that can be repurposed, cut up, sliced up into shorter videos, shorter sections, just to bring people back in. And I think that's also something that can't be overlooked. But to Beth's point, it is a hybrid strategy. So having a combination of the two probably will be the way forward to get the pros of physical and virtual. But in terms of creating a pre-event strategy, there are a combination of things that we would recommend. For example, when you're working with event providers or whether you're creating your own event, I think it's always good to align with sales and figure out what it is that you're trying to do. I've been to countless events in the last year where I go up to people and I'm like, oh, so what is it your company does? And the salespeople that are there can't articulate it, or they haven't got a clue. And that's always an uncomfortable situation, or understanding why they're there or what it is they're trying to gain from that event. Is it awareness and exposure? Is that a new territory you're trying to tap into? Are you simply there to try and get as many meetings as possible? Are you trying to get as many demos as possible? Are you trying to win customers then and there? And I think it's super, super important that you align this with sales before attending these events. Train them. If they're your spokespeople, if they're on the ground, go in with the strategy and let it get competitive, make competitions for them and see what it is that you're trying to gain. And then support that with marketing efforts, whether that's social campaigns, email campaigns, content distribution ahead of the event. Sometimes it can be difficult in cyber. For example, for things like GDPR, we won't know necessarily who will be at the event. So we have to reach out to our own databases and figure out, do we know anyone there? Can we book meetings in advance with them? But typically for our industry, we won't get those lists in advance, which probably is a good thing. But it means that at the event, you've got to be really creative to pull people in.
So not having those lists before, is it kind of a less of a targeted approach initially then? Kind of not scattergun, but...
To some extent, I mean, you may have a fair idea. I mean, you would pick an event that you would expect your ICP to be at, potentially a few customers already. So there may be people you already know are going to be there from your own contact base. But you should work with the vendors to get an idea of the types of businesses that are there. Is it a particular segment? Is it a particular industry? Is it a particular region? Is it a particular size? And then you can do targeted campaigns and get creative online. But unfortunately, actually, it's a positive thing. I do think GDPR is a positive thing. You won't always have the exact names and exact titles. So, you do have to try and get as much awareness ahead of the event to get the meetings pre-booked to make those events as successful as possible.
Nice. Thinking on your feet as well. I like that.
Yeah.
Being positive out of it. Thank you. And Aaron, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think from a strategy perspective, at events, it's, why are we going in the first place? Is it mainly for demand gen reasons, right? And And I meet with companies all day, every day, and I ask them, do you go to events for demand gen reasons, to meet with customers to either, advance business or create new business? And most of the time the answer is yes. And if that's the case, then what's our strategy to drive meetings that's going to help create an advanced pipeline at these events? And just like Sawson was saying, you have sales and you have marketing, and sales needs to proactively outbound, start reaching out to their current customers that may be there, because they may have current customers that they need to have conversations for retention. They may have current conversations with prospects that they have current opportunities. And if they were able to get in front of the right people, product experts or executives, and have the right discussions, they're able to advance that deal. So sales needs to work proactively 6 to 8 weeks prior to an event to start booking those meetings, right? Hopefully they're using a meeting automation platform like Jiffle now, and they can go in and see the right people in the right locations and get these meetings booked easy. Hopefully they don't have to leave their CRM like Salesforce to do so. But then marketing had a strategy to market and do campaigning to that same audience, whether it's people they know are going to be there or they're not sure that's going to be there. But there's an avenue to send campaign emails, social posts, be in the sponsorship portal pages, so that based on what market they're in, what product and service they offer, that an attendee can find what they're looking for and book a meeting with them as an exhibitor. So make that easy. So when a customer or attendee comes in, they don't have to send an email. They can say, hey, I'm interested in these 5 topics that your company provides, which maps them to the right experts' availability, shows an available time. They book it and get a calendar invite. Now you have sales driving outbound, marketing driving inbound, and you're maximizing the amount of meetings that you're going to have when you show up to the event. Now, when you're at the event, you have an ad hoc strategy as well to book qualified on-site ad hoc meetings. So now, again, ad hoc, proactive, maximizing meetings that create an advanced pipeline that you can report on.
That sounds like a great technique.
Yeah.
I wonder how that kind of transposed to online during kind of the pandemic times. Was that more difficult?
It was tough, and we were able to do it. It just wasn't as much volume, because see, what happens is the salespeople, they don't need to work around a virtual event to book virtual meetings with their customers. They can book those meetings anytime they want. So we really hosted in on driving inbound. Hey, if we're going to do a virtual event, let's in the chat bot put a link for a customer to book a meeting instead of ask a question. Let's make it easy to drive inbound. But people just didn't engage. People didn't book those meetings. We did so many campaigns where we put a link out in all of these webinar series or virtual events, and people just, there's some techniques to drive some inbound there based off like, a gift if you book a meeting, or, really great content that gets you interested and want to meet with an expert, but it wasn't in the volumes that people expected. So get the content out there so people can learn about it, but then get them to a live event to engage. Okay. I think is the strategy.
Thanks. Okay. And Beth, how do you feel about all this?
In addition to traditional marketing tactics, announcing your presence or involvement at a show with email and social campaigns, lots of activity on LinkedIn, I do like to look at those pre-event lists, knowing that we probably won't even have a name. It's a title, it's a company. I definitely won't have email addresses, but cross-referencing that with our database to see, are any of our target accounts there? So oftentimes our clients will have a list of 100 to 200 accounts that they're really trying to work with to win. So we can cross-reference their database with those pre-event lists and then recommend personal outreach to folks. I never liked inviting people to come to a meeting in the booth or even in a meeting room. Even now, post-pandemic, I'm all about that personal outreach to say, come have a coffee or a cocktail with us. But making those personalized. And if they say, no, I don't have time for this, I'm already booked up. Ideally, you have a budget to host a cocktail reception where you can say, great, come to our cocktail reception. Feel free to bring a colleague. Your badge is your entry. And that is a wonderful tool for getting even more badge scans. Most lead scanners will work off site if it's just an app on your phone. So branching out, doing these warm activities. So where people come in and it's not a sale, they're not coming to be sold to, they're coming to get to know you, they're coming to hang out. And I think that, the honey is much better than the vinegar. Not that sales has always been vinegar, but those in-booth meetings are still really important. I just like to kind of incentivize folks to come and make us look more attractive.
So that sort of gets them in there with the coffee and the cocktail, and then you have the sales team waiting with the kind of, so you say you kind of cross-reference beforehand, so you kind of have an idea of what you're targeting.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, let's move on then to our next talking point about aligning sales and marketing to business goals and measuring event ROI, and that's a bit more tricky. So Sawson, coming back around to you to start, I'm afraid.
No, that's okay. I think this is a really, really interesting one. And I've seen companies do this really, really well or really, really badly. And I think you need to start with knowing what your costs are and setting realistic expectations. And it requires you to know in advance of even choosing the event that you're going to participate in or you're going to organize is how much is this event going to cost us? And you also have to factor in not just how much sponsorship is or how much swag is or how much it's going to cost you to print leaflets that people might just bin as soon as they walk out the door, but it's actually about knowing, right, well, which salespeople will we send in? What is the opportunity cost of them, like, not being in their office that day? Because we know if they're, potentially cold calling that day, or if they've got a client meetings or demos, we know what the output of their average day would be. But if they're taking them away and putting them in a different environment, that environment has to be at least the same productivity levels, if not more. And so setting realistic expectations around the costs, and also then knowing what your sales cycle is, what the average sales value is. Having some of those pieces and some of those metrics together will help you know what it is when you're trying to measure ROI. And this can take long for events. People are there to consume information. They might not be buying straight away. But then again, it comes back to when you pick your events, how do you know if this is one that is going to produce ROI? Because some are not there to produce ROI. Some are there just to keep your foot in the ground and fly the flag, let people know you're out there. But if it is one where you're trying to get ROI, will the delegates that are attending, do they have buying intentions? And if so, how can you get in front of as many of them as possible and have meaningful conversations in a short period of time? And I think this comes back to one of the points I made earlier about making sales a little bit competitive, because sales are naturally competitive people. And so having competitions and having an understanding of what it is you need to achieve after this event and working backwards can really help you. But in my view, events do need to deliver more than just awareness. So it's always important to have some goals in mind for everyone to align on.
Yeah, and I'm left wondering, because if you've got one event that's kind of ROI targeted and you've got one event that's more, flag, how do you kind of work back value-wise? Because you might have three events that, ultimately lead to this massive sales spike. But are you talking about sort of planning longer term then, or is it event by event kind of basis that this works? Or
so I wouldn't compare two events personally, because some have different purposes. But for the ones that you are trying to get ROI from, so for example, there's some that we've done which have pre-booked meetings in advance. So before you even get there, you'll probably have a profile, the delegates will have a profile, and there's a matchmaking system. So before we even go to that event, we know we've got 12 meetings booked ahead of that event, which the organizers have prepared for us and qualified for us. So we know we're going to have meaningful conversations there before we even go in, because that's part of what the package is. And I think you need to, just be realistic with, if it's a conference, you might not get the meetings from it, but you might have that awareness, which over time will have great value. But you need to follow up on that. You need to make sure that they're the right types of people. If it's, for example, students or people seeking jobs or other salespeople who are trying to sell to you, which does happen at conferences. I'm sure we're all too aware of that. Is knowing, right, from this audience, is this something that's likely to generate more than we've invested into it, when we take into account all the additional costs and the hidden costs sometimes that we don't think about, such as people's time, because that is something that's quite expensive.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant, thank you. Aaron, can I pass to you next on your take on measuring ROI?
Yeah, and I heard you say two things, like how do we align sales and marketing and drive ROI is right. And from both ladies, Beth and Saucon, I hear is, and Beth said we can't just go in so hard, right? It's so easy for me to say, hey, meetings drive pipelines, so sales go book meeting and marketing go book meetings, but in that more rigid way, again, just like Beth said, people don't want to be sold to. So if I just come in selling, then it's going to turn people off. So what I find is, sales is really there to proactively try to get the meetings, to build rapport with people, and marketing's there to like calm us down, like give the attendee the right type of experience that's going to, make them want to be in that environment. Right? Not just be sold to it, because all of us salespeople, we have quotas, we have numbers to make, and it's a lot of pressure. And so we want to get down to what's going to get us this deal, right? And, I don't know about your marketing teams, but my marketing team's like, whoa, let's make sure they're going to have a good experience. Let's make sure we're going to get their questions answered. Let's make sure we have demos based on the topics that they want to see about, right? So, I really rely on marketing to help me with that environment, to make a place, an environment where people want to be, not just, hey, come into the campground with all the sales attack people, right? And at the same time, train the salespeople that, we need to build rapport, build relationships, build experiences that are going to help attendees and customers want to connect and want to meet with you, right? Because that's what I find is we're always trying to get people to meet with us, but we're not working on getting them to connect first. And we got to get them to connect through content and through building rapport so that they want to meet. And then when they meet, as long as we get a meeting, it's going to build an opportunity that's going to come out into an ROI, right? Because if you look at how many meetings based on your average deal size, just like Saucon was saying, your average deal size times that many meetings and your close to pipeline ratio, you could depend on some influenced pipeline or closed business based off those numbers. But again, you're never going to get that stuff if you don't align with marketing to drive the right environment that gets people to want to connect, have a relationship, and want to engage with you. That's going to result in a business conversation. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it did. Thanks. It sounds like a lovely place to go with all the marketing team making it warm and fuzzy and welcoming, and sales around the edge when you need them.
Yep, that's right.
Good, perfect balance. And what about you, Beth? What do you think?
I want to reflect back on two things that Saucon and Aaron said. So first of all, Aaron, as far as I'm concerned, those cocktail hours are attack grounds.
Yep.
Ideally, those people who have registered for that are not new to us. It's not a cold open. We've been talking for a while. Perhaps we've met at an event 3 months ago, and they are further along in our sales cycle, further along in their buying journey. Because as we know, as marketers, event marketers, all leads are not created equal. An event lead does not equal an inbound lead. And I have seen some frustration internally at various organizations. They're like, our sales cycle is 2 weeks long. Why are these event leads taking 4 months, 6 months? A lot of the times they don't even know that they need the solution you're providing. So we're educating them on what the solution is, why they need it, and then why we're the best. So back to what Saucon said about really understanding your sales cycle, it's so important to have these event benchmarks and to understand how an event lead converts and what that journey looks like versus an inbound or even an outbound. What that journey looks like, where people are making their decisions and how they engage with us after they meet us at an event. And another way to do that is by giving them content that matters, giving them content that they care about. And also, I mean, I don't want to keep saying this, but it comes down to this because I've been hearing all of us say this. It's about aligning marketing and sales, and you need a solid marketing to sales transition process that is documented, that is shared, that everyone who's involved in those leads, picking up those leads, following up on those leads, knows exactly what they're doing, how they do it, that marketing is providing those resources and tools, so templates for outreach so that salespeople aren't being asked to follow up with 100 leads or BDRs, 100 leads, and coming up with something on their own, giving them a starting point to make it easy for them to do the work you need them to do, because we are all chasing that same goal. We just have different tactics of getting there, and it's incredibly important. And something else I'll say is your marketing to sales transition will never be static. That is going to be tweaked after every event, or it should be tweaked until it is perfected. And then 3 months later, it's going to be even more perfect as we continue to tweak, continue to develop, and better understand our sales teams, because different sales folks are going to need different things. And that is our job, is to continuously improve that process so that that ROI is always improving year over year.
Yep.
Thank you for continuously improving that. Like, follow those points and add more. Wonderful, thank you. And we've got.
I think Beth's the closer.
Yeah. Chose the right order today, I think. Yeah. We've got one more point, but before we move on to that, we've got a question here. Thank you, Esme, for your question. She asks, any suggestions on the tools that can help calculate event ROI? I'm just going to go around each of you again, if that's okay. Just any of your experiences or what you want to offer. Saucon, can I start with you, please?
I would actually start with Salesforce or your CRM. So we use Salesforce, so that's always the first word in my mind. But I think it needs to be a centralized place. So we would upload the data post an event or pre an event, if we've got it, into our marketing automation platform, link them to campaigns, and assign a certain number of points. To Beth's comment earlier, that you can't treat them as the same as inbound leads, but you know there's an intention there. For example, if someone is coming and stopping by a booth versus someone who actually asked for a demo versus someone who just came to get free socks, you have to treat those people differently. So how you hand them over, and then once you've handed them over, having them assigned to the person that had that conversation, I think is really important as well, because you would have hoped that they've built some rapport in person, and they can just pick up where they left off. And usually we would rely on sales to update the notes. So I think CRM is where we would measure ROI, but linking it to campaigns, so we know that, you know, this prospect came from this event, or maybe it came from somewhere else, and maybe we'd been in touch with them prior, but it was the event that really led to that initial foot through the door. Maybe they'd heard of us, maybe they'd been on our website prior to the event. What were all the stages in between, but what is the campaign that really helped us get in front of them and secure that meeting? So for me, everything comes back to CRM, because that's our single source of truth, and that's where sales and marketing can agree. This is where we host the most up-to-date information.
Brilliant, thanks. So that's a great answer for you there, Esme. But we've got some more coming. Aaron, can I pass to you, please?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question I deal with day in, day out. And I think what Saucon said is right. You know, start and end with the CRM. Coming from, but I think you have to have a meeting automation platform to schedule and manage all of these meetings, right? But don't have it to where the sales team needs to go to another tool. Make it so that they never have to leave Salesforce, and they can align any of the opportunity information into that meeting. So if I'm going to book a meeting with this account and there's a current opportunity, let me tag that opportunity so I know what that revenue amount is associated with that meeting. So now I can track pipeline advanced as a result of going to the meeting. Now, during the meeting, let the host of the meeting fill out in a mobile app or a quick survey in the meeting automation platform of, did this meeting help create or advance an opportunity? If it did, then what's the opportunity amount? And then have all that data go back to Salesforce. So now you can run against a campaign, right, in both marketing automation and your CRM on how we went to this event. And ultimately, we did all of these things to drive meetings that helped create and advance opportunities and turn into revenue. And that's all usually measured and reported on in the CRM or into a BI tool, because you're pulling lots of data together, is what I see at the biggest companies in the world. But again, the goal is either measuring meetings that turned into pipeline and influenced revenue, or how much create versus advanced. And that's really the ROI number.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Beth, did you have something you wanted to add?
CRM, I mean, everything is in the CRM. I like to make sure that there are fields where we can enter not just our budget for an event, but our actuals as well, so that we're reporting on everything in one spot. Working with your marketing ops or business ops team, making them your best friends so that they'll make all of the dashboards that you need to illustrate your value as an event marketer, but also to really understand your own event benchmarks. and making sure your campaigns are set up properly to capture those opportunity values, what stage they're in, and making sure they're attributed back to your event campaigns, not just if your event campaign is the original or first marketing touch, but if there's already a deal in the pipeline and they came to our cocktail hour, I want credit for that influence. So making sure that you are besties with your ops team and that they're helping you track all of that is golden.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, Beth. There you go, Esme. That's some great answers there. I hope that answered your question. So we're going to move on now into mapping out a program that allows customers to engage with your brand. So I'm coming back around to you, Sawson, please. Oh, I think you're muted there.
Had to be done, didn't it? No, I've got a few points on this one. I think one thing that I find works really well is if you can get your customers and partners to join you on the stands, be your advocates to join you, because there's that, you know, delegates will expect to say amazing things about your brand, but when they hear it from someone else who's lived and breathed it and experienced it, that's in the similar shoes to them, I think that's always a powerful story. So I think if you can, wherever possible, try and invite your customers, because if nothing else, it will help you solidify those relationships even further and give you guys an opportunity to reconnect. So I think that's always a good one. And then another one is actually understanding what other people are doing at the event to make sure that your messaging aligns. So, for example, if there are particular themes or topics and trends, make sure you align with that. For example, the company I'm at, we've got multiple solutions. You know, there's 10, 12 different things that you can choose from. But if we know this event, there's a really hot topic, and it's actually the key themes of this event as well, we would focus in on that product or those product categories to make sure that the message that we're going in with isn't completely misaligned, and it's more likely to target the right people, because you know that when people sign up for an event, that's one of the things that they do to assess whether they're going to attend or not. So you want to make sure your messaging aligns before and during the event to make sure it's in theme. But then the third one, which I think a lot of people overlook, is actually speaking to the event organizers and setting your expectations. I think a lot of people see a package and say, right, okay, shall we go for this? Shall we not? But what they don't always do, or sometimes can be easy to overlook, is actually explain to them what you're trying to get from the event, because there may be strategies that you can implement together. For example, I've spoken to event organizers and I said, look, it's really, really important for us to be able to get in front of enterprise accounts, or really, really important for us to be able to achieve this from that event. What we typically do is figure out some that we can implement, whether it's they might create an introduction at that event, they might bring that delegate over to us to have a nice conversation, or maybe they go, well, why don't we put, if, for example, if we've got a new product release or something that we'd like to announce, they'll say, well, why don't we do an email blast to our audience that are already registered to let them know that at this event they can expect to see X, Y, and Z. So I think always having those relationships with the organizers, holding them accountable to some extent, but just sharing with them what your expectations are in the same way you would share your expectations with your management or your sales team. It's really, really important to be aligned on what it is you're trying to achieve, and working together to get that, because they might have some ideas as well that you guys can collaborate on, and that will make it a more fruitful relationship too.
Nice, thanks. And I know yesterday you were talking about in our rehearsal, talking about sort of post-event targets, sort of campaigns, sort of LinkedIn campaigns, social campaigns and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, so post-events, there's so many different things you could do, because at that stage you would know who the people are that you met, and I think it's always important that during the events you connect with these people, but after these events you could do different types of campaigns, whether it's ABM, whether it's email, whether it's inviting them to another event, perhaps a short webinar where you draw some of the key themes of that event, or some of the key messages, or some of the key learnings and findings from that event sometimes work really well. You can actually use it as a pre-event strategy. So sometimes we might do a webinar and say, if you are attending in person, we can give you some free food or drinks vouchers if you come and meet us there. And sometimes that's a sweetener for getting people to that event as well. But I think when you're thinking about marketing, everything needs to be integrated because no campaign works on its own. You do need various components supporting each other at different points. So it's always just about not just the event then and there, but thinking that of the full event cycle and making sure you maximize it. My team, for example, once an event is done, we always do a blog afterwards to summarize what were the key findings for those that didn't even attend, because you never know, that piece can live on the internet forever and may attract someone at a later date. So always just trying to get as much value from the conversations you're having as possible.
Brilliant, thanks. I like the talk of balance there. You brought it back around to the start while talking about bringing everything around. That's nicely done. Thank you.
Everything's full circle.
Okay, Aaron, can I pass on to you? We're talking about mapping out a program that allows customers to engage with your brand.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's already been said. I mean, we're on with some really smart ladies that know what they're doing. And what Saucon said that we've proved this is that, believe me, if I'm bringing one of our customers from one of the biggest brands in the world to talk, that in the conversion is and the engagement is 20-fold, right? Not everybody wants to come listen to Aaron pitch, right? But everyone wants to come listen to the VP of IBM or the VP of HP talk about how they run events, right? So if you look at the engagement or the attendance to the things we do alone versus with our customers, it's amazing. So if I can get customers to come with me to a show or get customers to come with me to a webinar, then that just drives attendance like you wouldn't believe. And so bring the experts, bring the customers with the reference, right? To talk about being in those people's shoes, again, so that they can relate and connect. And they don't relate to the salespeople as much as they relate to customers that have been in their positions. Right. So I think that doing those things that are going to help people want to connect, and then putting all of this, including the content that you might have recorded from another event or from a webinar or whatever, out there in this way that just keeps going on and on, right? In social media and email campaigns, in virtual websites. I see a lot of people doing their big annual event and then taking that same content on the road, localized as well through webinar series and other avenues, and repurposing, like Saucon's already been saying. And then the important thing, you know, where like Jiffle now comes in, is make it easy for them to connect, right? Not a, hey, if you're interested, contact us now, but if you're interested, click on this button and tell us what you're interested in, and let us help you show an available time that you can click on and get a calendar invite. So we don't have to go through this funnel of somebody eventually calling you if you're even interested in anymore. If you remember what questions you had, that there's an easy process to click a button and get a calendar invite, and now you're booked. So again, all of these things that we're doing to drive connection and inbound and connection with your brand is going to turn into an engagement that creates or advances pipeline that you can measure and report ROI on.
Nice, thank you. Not sure that leaves much for you, Beth, but if I could pass to you.
No, I like it. I just get to add a little piece. I like to think about engagement with the brand as making it easy and delightful for your target market, or easy and valuable. If you are within those two categories, I feel like there's a lot of incentive for folks to engage with your brand. So if it's easy and delightful, then it's doing a lovely cocktail party or a dinner or a satellite event around a larger show, or it's doing a localized regional event that you take on the road, that is delightful, that is, you know, not the sales feeding ground. It is a come meet the brand, get to know us. Usually I like to save those for those initial touches. If we're really trying to get in front of someone and we haven't been able to get them, then come to this awesome party that we're throwing. Very soft sells, get them into the database. I also like to create post-event campaigns based on anything that happened at the event. So oftentimes we'll prepare our teams with talking points that are tailored for the event, and that doesn't resonate. And it turns out that everyone we talked to at this particular show was really interested in this other piece, or really concerned with something else that we hadn't really prepared much around. So like, that's an insight that I'll bring back to the rest of the marketing team to say, hey, that white paper that we wrote, these people did not care about it. They're actually concerned about this. So then come on, content team, let's get another one out. Let's launch a webinar series around it. And just continuing to evolve our messaging based on what we're actually hearing in the field. And as field marketers or event marketers, we have that benefit of getting to hang out with our clients, our prospects in person all the time. And it's really important that we get those insights back to our team, who oftentimes don't get to go to as many events or don't actually get to go meet our clients and are working with our internal data and benchmarks. So again, just make it easy and delightful, or easy and valuable.
And cocktail receptions,
Cocktails, all about the
I'm aware we're running out of time. We're sort of down to our last 5 minutes, but we've got a question from Esme here. So I'm just going to zip around you guys, if that's okay. She says, I wanted to get everyone's thoughts on how to minimize distractions and really grab attendees' attention. I mean, I want to say cocktails straight away here, but
alcohol.
Pass on to you guys. Awesome. Can I let you go first, please? We just have a minute. That's okay.
Yeah, of course. I think one of the main things is the stand, because people will see that from far away. I see a lot of vendors sometimes try and put so much information in, hoping that if this doesn't resonate, this will. If this doesn't resonate, this will. So just keeping the message really, really simple. What are the key themes, and let's stick with that. But then also having friendly, approachable salespeople. Often I see really shy, timid people at stands, like. And it's like, no, go over to people, have a conversation, and you don't have to go in and go, so can I have a meeting with you, or what do you do? Oh, you're not senior enough. It's just about having that general conversation and finding out why they're there. And naturally that will form into a conversation. So having really open people that are confident enough to speak to people, and also making sure that your messaging from far away is quite clear. What it is you do. Sometimes I walk past stands, I'm like, I don't even know what they do. I can't. I've read a lot, but I don't know. So you want to avoid that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jocelyn. And Aaron?
I think what Sauson said, and coming back to what Beth said, is that you got to know your audience and what they care about, right? Like, what are they interested in? What do they want to know about? What do they like? Not why we're there. We're there to get them to buy whatever we're selling, right? But that's, let's understand who they are. I saw this panel once that they said, hey, we're selling to these CTO, very engineer folks that really like nerdy stuff like Star Wars and Star Trek, right? And this was the stuff that they were interested in. If you went and studied their desk, you would find like their desk just packed with stuff, right? Like, how do we know what they care about so that we can drive experiences based on what they are looking for, right? Beth will probably explain this better than I can. But again, it's knowing your audience and knowing what they care about so that you can bring the things that they want to engage with, not just, hey, come listen to us talk to you, but putting things in place, experiences, content, whatever you found that they care about, which you got to do some research about. You can't just, assume. You got to do some deep research on who are your contacts, what do they care about, what's their interest, and then build that experience around those things.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. And Beth, passing on.
Yeah, in line with what both Aaron and Sauson said, and just that there's a delicate balance between attracting your ICP and the people who just want the free socks, or just want the signed football, or just want the delicious food or cocktails. So I think striking a balance, especially if we're talking about a trade event where you'll have a booth or a stand and folks in it, you definitely want people that are comfortable talking to people and wrangling them in. It helps when you have something that those people might be interested in. So a special food, entertainment. I really have seen so much success in booth entertainers, like magicians are wonderful. One year we were next to someone who had a magician who would steal people's watches. And then he would be like, oh, we're raffling this watch. And then someone would win and he'd be like, oh, that's my watch. Like, yes, it is. But then at the end of his performance, he would say, now we have a quick demo on whatever tool they had. So thinking outside the box to get people to come into your booth is always wonderful, but also having something that actually matters to them so that you aren't just collecting 1,000 lead scans for people who really just wanted to get bamboozled by your magician, or that pair of free socks, or enter to win a fabulous tech prize.
Mhm.
Thanks, Beth. Knew we could rely on you for a big finish. That was great. Okay, we've run out of time, but we do have a question. We have our little finisher question, which is just usually a one-word answer, which I wrote before we started. So I think I now know the answer for all of you, but I'm going to read it anyway. Can augmented reality replace physical events? Sawson?
Never.
Aaron?
Nope.
Beth?
Positively not.
Suspected as much. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. Thanks for the wonderful discussion. And thank you all to our guests this week. Thanks for getting involved. Thanks for the questions. We'll be back next week on Tuesday, the 18th of July at 3 p.m. BST, where the subject is demand generation, converting your strategic vision into tactical campaigns. So have a great week and goodbye.